Hello, welcome to Let's Talk Midlife Crisis. I'm your host, Tracy. Unfortunately, Ashley isn't able to join us today. Pull up your chair for your seat at the table as we talk about travel today. So, I don't know about you, but one of the things that I was thinking of when I was starting to get older and thinking about my age was the things that I wanted to do after I retire. And more and more so, it just became a thought that what are you waiting for? Waiting for me to retire. Maybe I'll never retire at this point. It sure feels like that some days that I'll never retire. So, what am I waiting for? So, I started last year by booking a stay in Mexico for the month of July because I work remote. So, theoretically, I can work from anywhere. So I did that last year. It was a lot of fun. My children came and brought the grandchildren. I had friends come down. We all just had a great time. So I went ahead and booked it for this year as well. Fabulous, fabulous time. And one of my best friends also has a vacation uh, residence down there as well. So we were able to spend some time together in between all of my friends coming down and my family. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful time. The folks down in Mexico are very hospitable. Most of them speak English. A couple tips to know if you're going to Mexico is if you're driving across, you do not need a passport. You'll need a birth certificate and a driver's license, but when you drive across, you don't need a passport. And I think that's one of the myths that people aren't aware of. But they do graciously accept U.S. currency down there. However, I recommend putting everything on either your debit card or a credit card just to let them do the conversion rate. I think you'll work makes out better for those if you do that. But also something to keep in mind is that um, they prefer tips to be in cash. So I would put everything on my card, but then if I was to tip, we tip in cash while we're down there. So they celebrate the U.S. 4th of July down there, Canadian 4th of July, and of course the Mexico Independence Day, which is in September. Um, but there are lots of places to go stay, to visit down in Mexico. They have pristine, pristine beaches, um, lots of fun shopping, and a lot of pharmacies. There's also a lot of dentist office. They're they're known for their inexpensive dentistry, and dentures and implants, as well as they do everything, cleanings and stuff like that. But there's a plethora of dental offices. It doesn't really matter where you go. I think there are a lot of dental offices everywhere, but then there are certain destinations by the Yuma border. They call it Molar City, um, but it's just a border town full of back to back to back to back dentist office. Actually, dentist office, for every two dentist office, then there's a pharmacy, and then there's a dentist office, and then there's a pharmacy. And they actually, for the pharmacies, they have quite a lot of medication. Depends on what you're looking for. A lot of people, purchase antibiotics down there. My PC in the States isn't that fond of that, but um, it's a very cost effective way. I would only suggest just being rational about it and thinking about it, maybe more analytical than rational, but because a lot of their prescriptions aren't exactly cheaper than what you would get in the States if you have, with your health insurance. So I think those are some things that you want to take into consideration. For me, when I was just down there, I take inhalers. So I bought a couple of inhalers, but they don't have a big selection. But what they do have are your rescue inhalers, and they're about $5 a pop. But also, what's important to know when you go to Mexico is that all of their pharmacies have different prices and those prices can be negotiable. If you tell them that you were just across the street and the same medication was cheaper, chances are they'll give it to you at that price in order to make the sale. And I would suggest trying negotiating for everything that you do in Mexico. When it goes to shopping, I mean, clearly, if you're at a restaurant, those costs aren't negotiable. But if you're shopping or purchasing things in Mexico, definitely try to negotiate a better price. So, a lot of street vendors and beach vendors, and anyways, I think if you don't ask for a lower price, you're leaving money on the table. So, but it's just one of my favorite places to go. From where we live, it's less than a 4 hour drive, door to door. I have rented the same beachfront condo, for the last 2 years. And again, it's for the entire month. And the funny thing is, and I originally found this condo on Airbnb, and now I go direct, um, to them instead of going through Airbnb to save some money when it comes to the cost of fees. But so that's something that you might want to think about too. If you go to a place and you find a place when you are traveling, if you'd like to return, maybe at the end of your visit, when you're giving a review, or depending on who's hosting it and, that relationship and that dynamic, but you can ask, for contact information to rent direct next time to avoid some of those fees. But that's just a helpful tip that I've found. Through the years, and it's nice. I'm becoming a big fan of Airbnbs, depending upon where I'm going and what I'm doing. But what I thought was very interesting is for me to rent it for the entire month was very, very reasonable. And it had to be from, like I said, it's in July, so it had to be July 1st through July 31st. But by doing that, I had a substantially lower rate. And like I said, it allowed time for friends and family to come visit me because the condo is only 2 bedrooms. Not everybody could come at the same time, but everybody could come staggered throughout the month and have the same experience. So, um, but there were people that were there just for 2 or 3 days that paid, you know, almost about a third of what I paid for the whole entire month for just a couple of days. So, not everybody's open and has the flexibility to do the more extended stay, short term rentals. But if you can, it's something cost saving that you may or may not think about. So, check it out. And while I was doing that, I also thought of other countries besides Mexico to go to. I finally got my passport renewed. It expired in June of 2020, I believe, maybe 2021, doesn't matter. But after the pandemic, you weren't able to renew your passports for a very long time. So I was finally able to renew my passport and super excited to use it. Again, I always thought I would travel later once I retired, but maybe I'm never going to retire. So I'm trying to save money and plan trips now. So my next adventure is coming up very soon. Um, in the beginning of October, going to Italy for 2 weeks with a friend of mine, one of my OG happy hour girls. Shout out to Dina. Yeah, yeah. Italy, it's almost time. We're getting so excited. So, for our Italy trip, we decided where we wanted to go. There's so many places, but we both agreed on Italy. And So we talked about it, made a plan. The first thing and the hardest thing to do was just to figure out when we could block out that much time, right, to go, and what time of the year we could do this. We started planning this about a year ago, and decided on in the fall. So then it became a little bit closer. Time kept passing, and we honed in on a date. So we had our dates, and then we started watching airfares, waiting for some specials to come. But by this time, which was earlier this year, uh, the passports were becoming, more and more people were renewing their passports, like myself, who had their passport um, expire during the pandemic. So they're renewing their passports and in feeling more comfortable, the further away that COVID looks in the rear view mirror, right? And more comfortable people are with traveling abroad and just traveling in general. I guess I'm being in crowds anymore, but so the airfares started going up and it started hitting the news about all of the travel and the international travel that people were booking. So we kind of panicked and we still got a good deal on our airfare, but we decided not to wait, but to go ahead and book our airfare. So this was probably, gosh, 6 months ago or more that we booked our flights to Italy and had to come up with a game plan, right? Actually, um, before we booked our flights, I skipped that part, which was kind of a very important part because we knew we wanted to travel around Italy while we were there, but we also weren't sure which airport to fly into. Should we fly into Milan or should we fly into Rome? But after doing some quick checking and figuring out kind of a roadmap of where we wanted to go, um, and what we wanted to see when we were in Italy, we decided that we were going to fly into Rome and we're going to fly out of Rome. So we made that decision. We checked around. We also knew that we wanted the shortest flight possible with the least amount of layovers, which kind of goes hand in hand. And wasn't particularly set on any one airline, but settled with ended up booking on British Airways and taking a flight from Phoenix to London, and then London doing the changing planes, flying into Rome. So, super excited. We got that booked. And then it was time to start finding out where we were going to stay. We knew we were going to start in Rome because we were flying into Rome. And so we started thinking about all the places we wanted to go to and how many days we would be able to stay at each place, and did a brief check on hotels, but thought that Airbnbs, again, were the best way for us to go because we want to stay in the city center, right? We want to be, feel like, the locals feel. And just walking down the streets to, local restaurants and, shopping and everything, and not to mention all the attractions. So it became our mission when we were booking our Airbnbs that it was all about location and also things to make sure of are, especially when you're traveling abroad and not everything, most everything on Airbnb, the app is in English, but there is some translations um, that you'll see in the language. But you just have to, things that we wanted to look out for was we didn't want a walk up unit. We needed an elevator. We had also decided that we're not going to rent a car while we're there. We're going to take the trains around. So we're only bringing a carry-on bag with us as luggage. So we wanted to make sure that we had a unit that was A, on the first floor, B, had an elevator, was easily accessible in the city center, in the heart of everything, as close to some of the main attractions, the Spanish Steps and the fountains and stuff in Rome. So we were able to secure, and make sure that I had enough beds for us both to sleep in. But we both agreed that, a sofa bed was fine. And we'd switch off. We didn't care as long as we had the location. and enough beds for us to sleep in, uh, or separate beds for us to sleep in, then, we were good with the location. And definitely you'll want to look at the reviews. Um, if you're selecting Airbnbs or hotels, whatever, it's very important for me to look at the reviews because that kind of gives you an honest opinion. Even if it has high marks, I try to go through the reviews because there's a lot of little details that you might not be made aware of had you not, went through and looked at the reviews. But so we also wanted a washer dryer in there because we're only bringing limited amount of luggage and clothing because we're going to be basically transients while we're there, so we're going to be taking everything with us. So we wanted to make sure that it had washer dryers, and for me hair dryer is very important, and some things that you don't know, right? Also something very important to note is when you're thinking about traveling abroad, or especially to Europe, any of the countries over there, is that you need a plug adapter because their outlets are different than in the US. So, and I'm going to credit that to our lovely happy hour friend, OG LaDonna, for bringing that up while we were out at happy hour one night. It's like, well, how are you going to charge your cell phone? It was like, oh, goodness. So, and they're very inexpensive. You can get it on Amazon, Walmart, um, Target, Walgreens, and they're very inexpensive. You can pick one up for probably $10. I think I paid about $12, $15 for mine, but mine it's two options, so it's a dual option. It can be a three prong or it can be a two prong. Because I did when I was doing research online, I found out that there are both in it, and I'm not sure when you'd need which one it would have. So I opted to pay a little bit more to have one that was versatile. So I feel very confident and very comfortable that I'll be able to plug in. And I only bought one. My wonderful travel companion Dina bought one as well. So we'll each have one, and it should be fine. Um, but yeah, so then we planned out our map of where we're going to go and where we're going to stay. We have not yet figured out our transportation, our trains. I did a little bit of Googling. My travel companion's doing a lot of research for me. She's a wonderful, analytical minded person that I value so much in situations like these. So she's doing a lot of checking. And apparently, there's actually Tide sheets that have detergent on them and that you can use them for travel loads. I'm not sure, this just in. She just advised me of that, I believe yesterday. So, but she thinks of everything. But sometimes those little things are things that can slip your mind outside of toiletries. We knew we needed to wash our clothes. I'm assuming that the Airbnb, if they supply a washer dryer, would have detergent, but you just don't know. So it's better to be safe. Some things, and she's packing. She found some good travel hangers, which I didn't bring, but I do love my Downy wrinkle release. So I bring a little travel bottle of that, which you can actually just refill with water, and Downy, or liquid fabric softener if it runs out. But I bring that, and so it's Downy wrinkle release, and you just spray it. Works really well on cotton, which is what I wear a lot of. But you just spray it, and you shake those wrinkles out. So, um, plus I don't like to iron, so I use it at home a lot. But when I travel, I bring it as well. Um, and so I don't usually worry a lot about hanging things up. I don't like to unpack because um, I'm afraid I'm going to leave something behind, which I've done before. So I generally live pretty much out of the suitcase while I'm traveling, with the exception of my toiletries that I'll bring into a bathroom. Um, but I don't want to leave something behind, and that's an easy way to do it. And now, what we have to think about, so we were able to purchase all of our Airbnbs. We're going to stay a couple days in Rome. We've already have tickets for the night Colosseum tour, and then we're going to head down to um, Capri. We're going to do a in short stop in Naples before we head over to Capri. They call it Capri. So they make it into two syllables, emphasis on the first syllable, Capri. But and super excited to stay a few days over there. We're going to take a boat over to the Amalfi Coast and spend a day, hopefully eating and watching the sunset in Positano, and then heading back up through Naples to Florence, where we're going to stay a few days in Florence. We're going to rent a car and drive up to Tuscany, hit a winery, a vineyard, a winery, maybe have lunch, and drive back. Unfortunately, I didn't want to bite the bullet and pay $600 for a convertible for the day. I thought that was, in my mind, I could see us just driving with the top down through Tuscany, the beautiful windy roads in Tuscany with the wind in our hair. But then found out the price of it and decided that a Fiat will be just fine. So perhaps fuel efficient as well. But so we're gonna spend a day in Tuscany, and then the rest of our time in Florence, and then from Florence we're gonna go to Milan and spend a few days in Milan. I want to see a bunch of cathedrals while I'm there. They just have such beautiful architecture and churches. I just get so awe-inspired by all of that. So we're gonna, just do as much as we can. In Milan, it's the fashion district. It's iconic, exciting, and again, we're staying in the city center of it all, so we're within walking distance to most everything. And my number one thing, and then from Milan, we're gonna fly back into Rome, spend the night again, and then head out back home. But whew, what a whirlwind trip it's going to be. It's going to be super exciting, super, super fun. And one of the main reasons that we chose Italy as our maiden destination, if you will, is because of the food. I cannot wait to eat my way through Italy. I I want to try pizza in every place that I just mentioned that we're going to be staying, and I'm a big fan of Italian food. I love pastas. I love breads. So I'm very, very much looking forward to all of the dining that we're going to do. Not to mention the signature limoncello. So it's like a dessert liqueur that we'll be more than likely drinking a lot of while we're there. I believe that we found that they have great happy hours, so we'll probably be eating a little bit early. But this trip again is coming up in just a few weeks, so I'll be doing a follow up to this story, talking about the great things to do in Italy, what we were able to discover, little trips and hints, and things that you need to know. Well, that wraps it up for our discussion today. Thank you for joining us on Let's Talk Midlife Crisis. Embrace the change. Please check us out at Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And join us next week for your seat at the table.